know, it almost felt like a foreign country.
It does.
You had,
it does.
I think I remember that was the arson, wasn't it? Or there was at
That
least
was
a
the
burned
arson, yes.
body, and you had a
yes.
lot of interesting stuff
Yep.
to say about, you know, the effect on the human body of being torched, essentially.
Yes,
I
yes.
learned quite a few things through you that I perhaps didn't need to know, but there they are.
But there you're
But you
reading
said to
away.
me once that you thought it had been, at least at that time, your least successful book. Was that because you thought that people just didn't want to read about that area?
No, actually it wasn't my least successful book, as it turns out.
Really?
Here's the quirk. People come to authors and ask them, what's your favorite book? What's the book you enjoyed the most? What's the book you enjoyed the least? Which one gave you the most problems? That kind of stuff. And what they're looking for is some sort of reader's insight. Never do that. Never ask a writer for his or her opinion on their own work. They are clueless. Trust me, they have never read the books they write. They write those books, but that's a completely different experience. So, writing this book, which was called Borderlines, was a nightmare. I was thrust up against a deadline I wasn't anticipating and wasn't used to. I chased down a wrong alley for far too long. It was a perfect example of a sophomore book.
Aha,
And in
the
fact-
evil sophomore book. Yes, the famously evil sophomore book.
Exactly, and that's why I blessed Charles Champlin, who was still reviewing for the Los Angeles Times at that time. And he said, Mayer has jumped that highest of hurdles, the second book. And I went, boy, you've been there. Because it was a nightmare. I managed to get it done. And the book, funnily enough, from a reader's viewpoint, is fine. It meets the standard.
I'm glad we've cleared this up because I really liked it. I mean, I read Open Season, which I enjoyed, but Borderline, because partly just because of the timing of you know, what I was there to be selling by the time you wrote Borderline, was really the one I read, you know, first with the most attention, and I thought it was great. So I've always been slightly puzzled by why you had that attitude towards it.
No, the attitude was entirely personal. You didn't see me sweat.
Okay.
But I was sweaty.
Gotcha. But I guess a question I could ask you is, you know, when some writers, I mean, you've had an incredible, you've always had a great relationship with the New York Times. They have reviewed virtually every one of your books, always enthusiastically, said some wonderful things. You've won book awards and all. But you've never really had a big sales breakthrough.
No.
Is it because, do you think, Vermont is too small a stage?
I think it's less Vermont, which has its own sort of cachet and attractiveness, its own magnetism. So I wouldn't say that it's the setting. I would say it's probably two things. One is my style of writing is, how do I say this without sounding just hopelessly pompous?
You can be pompous. I'll prick the balloon as soon as you say it.
Let's put it this way. I have a love affair with the English language. I think it's melodious. I think it's multi-tiered. I think it's complex and nuanced. I think its expressiveness is magnificently changeable and available. And just as I said all of that, so do I write. I love to say a little bit more than he kicked in the door and squeezed the trigger. There's more to writing. There's more to the music of the language, and I love to fool with that. I work at this as if they were novels of high art because I think that's what my readers deserve.
Well, they are novels of high art.
But they are in a genre that has been routinely dismissed as brain candy. Now that's not a debate I really care much about because I'm bringing what I'm bringing. I don't much care what the prejudice is on the other side of the fence. That's not going to slow me down from doing the best possible work I can do. But I think that the resultant language in these books is not as easily accessible as the old Mickey Spillane type. So if you are in fact looking for just pure escapism, I'm fearful on one side, but not apologetic on the other, that maybe I write a little harder than someone who's after brain candy.
Well, you're making your reader work a little more, so that's one thing. Okay, what's the other?
The other thing is, that they deal with subjects of human nature. I will delight in writing hundreds of pages with no action in it whatsoever. I, for example, am in this blessed situation. For the first time in years and years and years, I'm writing right on target. Next year's book, as yet untitled, I'm on page 325. Most of my books are 300-page long. I haven't even gotten close to the conclusion on this book, so my sails are filled with air. I'm utterly delighted. And the other day I realized, oh my God, I think I've got a page and a half of action over 300 pages. Now the book is swimming along. I'm having a wonderful time. People are in each other's hair and they're working out all these knotty problems and they're relating and not relating and whatnot. Well, I think that may also be a problem, is that I don't write books that are, you know, sort of breathlessly breathless, if you will, that there's always a cliffhanger at the end of every sentence.
We had that discussion, I think it was in The Skeleton's Knee. I think that you and I talked about that because it doesn't have a slam-bang ending.
Right.
And, you know, there was a time when I thought some of your books maybe didn't conclude as conclusively.
Yes.
As they might have, you know, for the genre, but they always worked, as you say, on a human nature level. And then, of course, you do have the book where you decided to write about a rape, rather as the crime.
Yes.
And see, I've always believed that mysteries do not have to have a murder in order to be enthralling.
Right.
So I really like that, and then that rape has resonated down. Through years of Joe's relationship with Gail. At what point did you decide that, you know, in order for Joe to grow, you were really going to have to wind up that affair?
Again, you know, funny kind of way, the characters and the books and the reality of my fiction, if you could cross that bridge, informed me. I don't dictate much, really, what happens to these folks. I'm writing a single book, and it's made up of book-length chapters. So it's an ongoing process, and it explains, in effect, why I've become my own publisher for the books that have since gone out of print. I brought them back into print myself, so I'm published at one end with the hardbacks with St. Martin's Press, just like a regular, you know, frontline author is.
Right.
But then I publish my own books from behind. Why? Because I see all these as a complete body of work, and I really don't think they should be represented as anything less than at the 100 percentile.
Well, I agree with you. Actually, I brought along a couple of the ones that you've done yourself because also, I mean, there's a lot we could talk about. It's not possible for you to do this in a, you know, the trade paperback format, you know, print on demand, all those good things have made it possible to keep backlist in print without the kinds of capital investments and systems that that publishing demands for, you know, for your hardcover book. My husband and I actually, since we are at year 11 with Poison Pen Press and we have 600 and some books in print now, and the distribution's being taken over by Ingram's Publishing Services. I've never wanted to have a distributor because that has been a financial disaster for many small presses. The distributor goes belly up and taking the money along and whatever. But the Ingram Book Company is so integrated into the publishing world. As I said to my husband, you know, if it goes, we've all gone. And I really do think that's true. I didn't think the book world can function really without Ingram at this point. So I'm not that concerned that if something happens to them, why are we here? Anyhow, but we have had to decide what to do about many of our older titles, how economical it is to keep them going. I too believe that a series ought always to be available, but I hate to see an author like you having to invest your own capital and all in keeping that going. We've actually been talking about a branch of the company in which Les Roberts has not done it himself, but has gone to a small company that I think has put all of his Milan Yakovich, because he's doing in Cleveland what you're doing in Vermont, back into print in order to make them available. And I see that happening more and more with people who have done a body of work